Take your seat. Standing Order 250, standing on its own, gives you no opportunity to make any statement on the floor. And if you want to make a statement, you know the procedure. Out of courtesy, you first see the speaker, inform the speaker what you want to raise. Then the speaker will oblige you, depending on the circumstances, to give you an opportunity to say whatever you wish to say. For now, I rule you out of order. You should follow the procedure. And when the speaker is satisfied that you have a case to prosecute, you'll be allowed the time to do so. And this doesn't apply to Honorable Atande only, to all of you, honorable members. If you have any issue you want to raise on the floor of the House, courtesy and procedure requires that you see Mr. Speaker way before time, so that he's also satisfied that what you want to raise does not offend standing orders, does not offend any law, does not offend any provisions of our Constitution, and falls within the orderly conduct of our business in the House. Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker. I rise on a procedure for a procedural motion that, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 120, that this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, from 7 days to 1 day, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been on a marathon, and especially in the recent past, considering the supplementary estimates, and lately, last week, the budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, we are currently in the process of considering the Division of Revenue Bill. And Mr. Speaker, judging by the calendar of the House, we may have to reduce this time, Mr. Speaker, so that before we proceed on the imminent recess, we will have, Mr. Speaker, done our duty in terms of passing the said bill. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I seek to move, and on the same, Mr. Speaker, request Honorable Aseka to second.
Who is seconding you, Honorable Chair?
Mr. Speaker, I had already requested Honorable Aseka to second.
Thank you. I was consulting with the clerk. Honorable Aseka, go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker. As the Chair said, looking at the constitutional timelines and the recess that is ahead of this House, I second.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, from 7 days to 1 day. I put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, from 7 days to 1 day. Will as members of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 13, motion, alteration of the calendar of the House.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 28.4, that this House resolves to alter its calendar for the second session, that is the regular sessions, as adopted on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, by varying the period for the short recess with respect to the first part of the session, and so that it reads that the short recess commences on Friday, 24th March 2023, and ends on Monday, 10th April 2023. That the House resumes regular sittings on Tuesday, 11th April 2023, to continue with the first part of the session. Honorable Speaker, you may have noticed that we have moved to extend the short recess by a week because the House still awaits the reports by the various committees. And therefore, the extension of timeline by a week allows committees time to finalize their reports on bills, on treaties, inquiries, which will be brought to the House upon resumption of the regular sittings. And owing to the fact that after, of course, the recess session, we will have several matters in the floor of the House, and we do not want to have the committees missing the plenary sittings and going for committee sittings then. So we want to allow the members of the committees some quality time to finalize their work, their bills, their treaties, and such before the resumption of regular sittings. And that is why we seek an extension of our recess. So it's actually a working recess by a week. So you'll notice, Honorable Speaker, that Easter holidays falls during the recess period, and therefore members will have an opportunity also to reconnect to their families and the constituents and engage with the people, because we've actually been having a very busy session when we resumed this year, and it's important for members to have quality time with the constituents, attend burials, issue bursaries, listen to the members of the public and such. So with those very few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and ask the Honorable Robert Mbui to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion. And I want to just note that for the benefit of everyone, maybe the citizens of this country, recess for the National Assembly is not a holiday. Every time you use the word recess, people might think that Parliament is going on holiday. We are not going on holiday. We are only changing the venue of work, because Parliament operates from chamber, in committees, and also even in the constituencies. So we are only extending by 1 week so that we can be able to carry out those responsibilities that we may not be able to carry out appropriately when we come to the chamber. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honourable members, I now propose the question, which is that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to alter its calendar for the second session, regular sessions, as adopted on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, by varying the period for the short recess with respect to the first part of the session, so that A, the short recess commences on Friday, 24th March 2023, and ends on Monday, 10th April 2023, and B, the House resumes regular sittings on Tuesday, 11th April 2023, to continue with the first part of the session. I'll now put the question, which is that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House, I now put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to alter its calendar for the second session, regular sessions, as adopted on Wednesday, February 15, 2023, by varying the period for the short recess with respect to the first part of the session, so that A, the short recess commences on Friday, 24th March 2023, and ends on Monday, 10th April 2023, and B, the House resumes regular sittings on Tuesday, 11th April 2023, to continue with the first part of the session. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 9, motion. Report on the consideration of the draft salaries and remuneration commission, remuneration and benefit of state and other public officers regulations 2022. Question to be put.
Order, honorable members on their feet, take your seats. Take your seats, honorable members. Honorable members, on order number 9, I now put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the draft salaries and remuneration commission, Remuneration and Benefits of State and Other Public Officers Regulations 2022, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 8th March 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 26(2) of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act 2011, rejects the Draft Salaries and Remuneration Commission Remuneration and Benefits of State and Other Public Officers Regulations 2022. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, motion. Approval of nominees to 3 National Government Constituency Development Funds Committees. Question to be put.
Order, honorable member. Take your seat, Wanjala. Thank you. Honorable members, on order number 10, I now put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Committee on 3 constituency committees laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 15 March 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 43(4) of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act 2015 and paragraph 5, 2, and 10. Order. Order, honorable member. We can give you the liberty to extend your conversation in the corridor as business goes on. Paragraphs 5, 2, and 10 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Regulations 2016 approves the list of nominees for appointment to the following 3 constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. 1, Garissa Township Constituency. Name, category, and statutory provision. Farah Yusuf, male youth representative, appointed pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). Hassan Osman Shurie, male adult rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). Marian Somo Hussein, female youth rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(c). Fatma Ahmed Kosar, female adult rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(c). Siad Hared Mohammed, representative of persons with disability, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(d). Mohamud Ahmed Dahib, nominee of the constituency office, male, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(e). Haredha Kahia Saman, nominee of the constituency office, female, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(e). 2, Mbere North Constituency, additional names. Brian Wallen Muteti Njiru, male youth, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). Javesias Nyombayekode Ngugi, male adult representative, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). 3, Narok East Constituency. Oropi Olemutuya Meshuko, male youth rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). Tapia Olngashar Punywa, male adult representative, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(b). Hana Nashipae Kusero, female youth rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(c). Gladys Wanjiru Soitara, female adult rep, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(c). Leshinga Mututua, representative of persons with disability, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(d). John Salaton Swakei, nominee of the constituency office, male, appointment pursuant to Section 43(2)(e). Pilale Ene Kashanga Kisotu, nominee of the constituency office, female, appointment pursuant to section 43(2)(e). Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 11, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 12, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in 2023-2024 financial year and for connected purposes. Order number 14, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, second reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. And we are here to consider the Division of Revenue Bill. That is Bill number 9 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I first of all want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee for a good job they have done in the recent past, and especially in making sure that we take our primary role as a House for budget making with the decorum that it deserves. Mr. Speaker, the members have also been very dedicated because, as you are aware, it is a very intense process. And basing on the disruption of the calendar from last year because of the elections, we have had to consider three important critical areas of budget making within a very short time. Mr. Speaker, within last month, we were able to pass the supplementary estimates. Last week, we were able to consider the BPS. And Mr. Speaker, from then, we have been considering the Division of Revenue Bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to bring to speed the members, because I want to take very little time, when we talk about the Division of Revenue Bill, what is it that we are talking about? Mr. Speaker, this is the bill that allocates money vertically insofar as the national government is concerned and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, this bill considers a block figure because there is a subsequent bill that considers horizontal allocation, which is called the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I would want members to get the difference, and even in regards to the other jargons we talk about here in Parliament. And just taking a brief moment, Mr. Speaker, it is good to update members that substantially budget making process starts on the November of the previous year. In this current situation, budget making started in November, October last year through something that we call sector working groups, where different sectors come together, different departments come together, forming clusters of sectors, and then, Mr. Speaker, they work on their budget backwards. After that is considered, Mr. Speaker, then we do what we were doing here last week and what departmental committees have been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks, where we consider ceilings of our budget, Mr. Speaker, and we consider departmental ceilings and sectoral ceilings in regards to budget making. Mr. Speaker, that is the process, in other words, that we call budget policy statement, or BPS, which basically sets the ceilings of the sectors and ceilings of departments. Mr. Speaker, after that, we go now to what we call the estimates. After we do away with the BPS, what follows is now what we consider as the budget. These are the estimates, where after now we have allocated these block figures and the ceilings, then we cascade further. After we give, for example, the Department of Forestry this amount of money, it is now the annual estimates that now goes into specific projects. Mr. Speaker, that is in line with the main budget. Mr. Speaker, after 2010, we now have two levels of government to consider. And we consider them right from the inception of budget making. But it starts to take shape, Mr. Speaker, and especially as far as this House is concerned, through the process that we are considering today. Mr. Speaker, today's motion, we are debating around the vertical allocation of the monies that we remit to our counties, equivalent now to a kind of BPS that only touches on counties alone. Mr. Speaker, after now we do the block figure, it is the business of counties to do their main or to do their own budget lines. But it is the prerogative of this House, in conjunction with the Senate, again to allocate now this block figure that I'm going to give, that is a tune of 385 billion to specific counties. That is 47 counties. And Mr. Speaker, the way we do it is not the way we have been dealing, for example, with the CDF, where we take the figure and divide equally. Here is where now we have CRA coming in, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, which takes now this block figure, puts in a calculator called a formula, and then that formula calculates what from county 001 to county 047 gets. And Mr. Speaker, that will be our next business, which is called now the County Allocation of Revenue Bill. Mr. Speaker, I thought it's good that I demystify these jargons so that we are able to handle this matter objectively. And therefore, just to repeat, the division of revenue bill, the reason it is so brief, it is because it considers a block figure. And then the specifics in terms of what each county gets, that is on a different bill, Mr. Speaker, which is the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, which this House, in conjunction with the Senate, will be considering. Mr. Speaker, because devolution has a monetary side, that is why the National Assembly is very integral. But on the other side, when we are discussing county matters, then the Senate is also very pivotal. That is why the Senate has already been able to consider the same thing we are considering today, and also they'll be very integral in considering the County Allocation of Revenue Bill. Mr. Speaker, what are the kind of figures that you are considering? The budget, as we did in the BPS last week, we are talking about a budget of approximately 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings, the global figure. Mr. Speaker, out of the 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings, Kenya seeks 2.1 trillion is the money that will be running the national government. And these monies will be running the national government insofar as recurrent and development is concerned. That is 2.1 trillion Kenya shillings. The second highest allocation insofar as BPS is concerned, and also we have given the summary in this bill, the second highest from national government, Mr. Speaker, it is what we call consolidated fund services. Some of these things, Mr. Speaker, when I get an opportunity like this, I repeat them, Mr. Speaker, so that they cease to be jargons and they become issues that we can freely discuss. CFS, Mr. Speaker, is the monies that we spend in paying the interest rate of the monies that we have borrowed, servicing our national debt. That is both domestic and also foreign, and especially in regards to interest. It is the same CFS, Mr. Speaker, that has got pensions in them, and also the monies that we give to our commissions, Mr. Speaker, and other such very important obligations. The other third allocation, Mr. Speaker, is what we are discussing today within the Division of Revenue Bill. Because on the vertical allocation, Mr. Speaker, out of the 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker, we are giving our counties the normal allocation of Kenya shillings, 385 billion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, this is an increment of 15 billion over and above the 370 that the counties were to receive last year. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, it is important that I mention to this House that these are not the only funds that our counties will receive. Mr. Speaker, we will also be coming to this House with another bill again called additional revenue, Mr. Speaker, that we give to our counties. Mr. Speaker, this is where we include the conditional grants, both from the national government and from external foreign counterparts, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the entire conditional grant insofar as this year is concerned is just around 44 billion Kenya shillings. Within that money, Mr. Speaker, there is a 4.7 billion Kenya shillings, which you are giving to every county, 100 million shillings for the construction of industrial parks. Mr. Speaker, this is a project that has been agreed upon between the President and the governors, where the national government will chip in and the counties will meet us in some way so that we are able to establish industrial centers and parks within our counties. And therefore, cumulatively, Mr. Speaker, if you add 385 and 44, then we are talking about monies that goes to nearly 330 actually billion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, as far as the law is concerned, how do we derive at the amount of money that we actually allocate vertically to our counties? It is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that counties are entitled to 15% of the revenues, Mr. Speaker, that have been submitted by the Auditor General to this House, debated and passed by this House. Mr. Speaker, the last financials that were passed by this House is 2019-2020. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, we are considering revenues of around 1.6 trillion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, therefore, the money that we are giving our counties vertically accounts for around 23.3%, which is over and above the threshold of 15%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I mentioned there before that this is in addition to the other conditional grants that our counties receive. Mr. Speaker, we got from our brothers and sisters from the Senate, which had considered that the counties were to receive ordinary remittances from the national government to a tune of 407 billion. Mr. Speaker, we faulted our other house because of the consideration and basis. The basis in terms of the laws that we use is the last audited financials, Mr. Speaker, financial statements. But Mr. Speaker, Senate was basing their figure of 407 billion to the projected revenue of this financial year. That has its pitfalls, Mr. Speaker, because you cannot budget issues of money on projections. And especially if, when you cast the figure on stone, then you cannot change it. Mr. Speaker, the figure we are considering today, once you consider it, it can only be fulfilled. And therefore, it is important that we base such kind of important figure on the basis of reality and fact. Mr. Speaker, I also want to bring to this House, and especially the members who were there before last term, must have noted that there is the money for maintenance of roads, roads maintenance levy fund, Mr. Speaker. Last term, our first 3 years, Mr. Speaker, these monies, some were coming to what now is KERA in our regions, the one that we superintend in our constituencies, and a sizable amount was also being transferred to our counties. Mr. Speaker, in the last 2 years, this has changed, and that has led to the enhancement of the road maintenance levy fund that comes to our constituencies, and especially the 22% and the 10% to where it is now, which moved from approximately 30 million per constituency to 60 million per constituency. Mr. Speaker, it is the feeling of the committee that we retain that as it is, Mr. Speaker, because the counties, the constituencies are a smaller unit, Mr. Speaker, of governance, and we are able, Mr. Speaker, as members of parliament, and especially as carer, to be able to see the roads that clearly disturb our people and act on them. Mr. Speaker, this is because our brothers and sisters in counties also have, within their normal allocation, monies for road maintenance, Mr. Speaker, and therefore that status quo for the last 2 years is remaining as we pass this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are just a few things I want to say, then we give other members an opportunity. Number one is that there has been 5 counties that never had district headquarters, which we are considering even on this division of revenue bill, Mr. Speaker, through conditional grants, that they complete their ongoing headquarters. Some like the Rakanidhi is almost complete, nearly complete for the last many years. And because, Mr. Speaker, any construction site, whatever percent it is, it only starts to get utility, Mr. Speaker, when the citizens are using it. It behoves of this House that we consider allocating those resources so that we complete those ongoing headquarters in 5 constituencies. Mr. Speaker, our governors also are doing a fantastic job, and as fellow leaders, it is important that we support them. And we have done that in the past in the committee, where even in the supplementary estimates, we considered the arrears of yesteryears, Mr. Speaker, which had not been remitted. But on the same breath, Mr. Speaker, we have noted that majority of our CECs from across the counties spent majority of their time following up money, Mr. Speaker, to be released. They move from the Office of the Controller of Budget to the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, it should not be the business of our CECs to keep on following up money, Mr. Speaker. We must devise a formula where the money that the exchequer gives or receives, Mr. Speaker, they are able to allocate that money even to our counties without a lot of pushing, so that we leave our CECs finance to be able to superintend the monies within their counties, other than wasting time, Mr. Speaker, in the Controller of Budget's office and the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, therefore, it is important that I note that this committee noted that anomaly, that we should be able to streamline and get a formula on how exchequer is allocated, Mr. Speaker, even within the circumstances of scarcity. Mr. Speaker, as we talk about pending bills, this is a menace within the national government, and also it is also endemic in our county governments, Mr. Speaker. And some of these issues are not of the making of the current governors. These are a historical problem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we allocate this money vertically, it is important that even as the national government sorts out the issues of pending bills, even our beloved governors from across all counties, and who are doing a fantastic job in our counties, to also consider, Mr. Speaker, paying the men and women of this country who have already worked and done works within our counties and that are owed colossal amounts of money, Mr. Speaker, in our counties. This will enhance velocity of money in our localities. It will enhance the taxonomies of various counties, and there, Mr. Speaker, also generate a velocity that we need, and especially insofar as the macroeconomy is concerned, the velocity of money. Mr. Speaker, also something else that our governors can check, which has been endemic, not just the making of the current governors, it is the issue of recurrent versus development. Majority of these monies that we are allocating today, Mr. Speaker, the huge proportion of the 385 billion, most of this money, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, is going into recurrents, to paying salaries, Mr. Speaker, which is an noble thing, but we must be able to realize that as leaders, the governments do not exist to service the agent of the government. The government exists to service the people who have placed us in these positions. And we can only service these people, Mr. Speaker, if most of the money that we allocate goes into service delivery, and especially in development. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I would want also to speak to our governors whom majority have been also members of this House and the Senate, that the national government is doing everything possible to raise our own revenue as a country. So, Mr. Speaker, our counties must realize that they cannot continue to operate and to function properly and efficiently when they are almost purely relying on the exchequer from the national government. Mr. Speaker, our counties have got powers to levy taxes, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the kind of proportion of money that we see in terms of own revenue is not commensurate with the opportunities that our counties have in terms of raising their own revenue. Mr. Speaker, we must enhance, and our counties must enhance their capacity to generate their own internal resources, Mr. Speaker, so that we can also deliver proper service to the people that we serve in our counties. Mr. Speaker, there has to be in future a collective effort, and especially within the National Treasury, to come up with a system that amalgamates the entire collection of our various counties, Mr. Speaker, so that they can be assisted with proper systems, and especially by eliminating human contact in revenue collection, so that we can beef up our A&A, in quotes, that comes from our counties, so that, Mr. Speaker, our people can enjoy the service from our counties in regards to the taxes and levies that they pay. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you, and thank you this, and thank this House, Mr. Speaker, for the continued support across the many obligations that you have been having in the recent past. And, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, and request Honorable Dr. Chikati to second.
Chikati.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as highlighted by the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the suggested distribution, Mr. Speaker, is more than the constitutional framework of 15% as laid down, and this should enable the county governments to carry out their responsibilities and obligations in regard to their activities. Mr. Speaker, with tough economic times, especially the conflicts in Russia and Ukraine, reforms need to be put in place and instituted so that encouragement is given to the county governments to enhance revenue allocation, revenue collection, so that we also boost the national government as far as revenues from the county government is concerned. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the projected equitable share of 385 billion is adequate in light of the level of debt financing that is expected to be incurred during the 2023-2024 financial year, which is again 50% of the entire revenue of the national government. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Honourable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, be now read the second time. The screen is full. I don't know if it is full for this bill or the usual logging in early. Samuel Atandi, Alego Usonga. Oh, sorry. Had you logged in for this or for the point that you tried to raise?
I can say something, Honorable Speaker, on this. Can I go ahead?
Yes, I've given you the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I would like to support this motion, Division of Revenue Bill, and say, Honorable Speaker, that basically outlining the sharing of resources between national government, county government, and commissions. And like my chair has already put it very clearly, Honorable Speaker, the problem we have, Honorable Speaker, is that resources are not going to the counties as expected. as at now, Honorable Speaker, we are told that counties have not yet received resources for November last year. And this is something which concerns all of us as members of parliament, as members of budget committee, because our countries right now are the engine of survival for our people. Because, Honorable Speaker, you realize that issues to do with health, health and agriculture, very, very important components of our economy, are being handled by the county government. So, Honorable Speaker, we anticipate a situation where counties should really be the people to receive resources faster than any other person. So, as we pass this division of revenue bill, we would like to urge Treasury to ensure that resources going to our counties are fast-tracked and that services do not stall in our counties. Second, Honorable Speaker, it is the bill. It is in law, Honorable Speaker, that in case the resources collected are, there's a shortfall of resources collected by KRA, then the people to suffer are the national government, no counties. So, Honorable Speaker, this means that in case we collect more resources than was in the budget, the resources can be used to fund things like debt, and also can be used to support very other important aspects of national government. But, Honorable Speaker, this is not the situation. Because in the last financial year, Honorable Speaker, we collected more resources than what we had budgeted. And this was not reflected truly in the way the resources were reallocated. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to urge national government that this aspect needs to be really addressed. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I know that there's a stalemate in the sharing of resources between national government and counties, and that the IBEC meeting has not been able to resolve this issue. I know that the Commission on Revenue Allocation, they have given their own figures on how much money should go to counties, as well as what is in this bill. Honorable Speaker, we want to urge everybody, all the players, to ensure that we come to an agreement, and so that we do not delay the passage of this bill. We want to urge the Senate to consider that we are in very hard times, and that there may be a lot of resources to go to the counties, because after all, Honorable Speaker, we know that a lot of counties are not spending their resources very well. And that is the reason why we have said that for the resources, for the fuel levy allocations that were supposed to go to counties as conditional grant, those resources should go to KERA so that they are supervised by MPs in the constituencies. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Honorable Atandi. Honorable Peter Kihungi Kangema. He's not in the house. You log in and then you go out. Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi Buri.
I stand to support Mr. Speaker on this revenue allocation bill. Mr. Speaker, I think the committee has done an excellent job. I want to thank the chairman for taking time to take us through the meanings and jargons they are in. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we really need to know and note is that the counties also receive a lot of grants and donations, which are channeled through the national government, but which are not strictly overseen or oversighted by the National Assembly. I would like to ask the committee that any money that is sent to the counties through the National Assembly, the national government, the National Assembly, is given the law of oversighting. For example, Mr. Speaker, there are project grants that come through a project called KISIP for slum upgrading. There is also money that comes through Kenya Revenue Board for loans. Mr. Speaker, all this money goes to the county. And once they are counted in the revenue allocation bill, they should and need to be monitored so that we can know how this money is utilized. I want to thank the committee and the government for ensuring that the counties have given more money. But on top of that, there is the utilization of money, which is a key factor in how the counties utilize the resources that they are given. Mr. Speaker, you will find the money that is given first priority is the counties. But I want to disagree with one member who said that the counties need to be given money first. Money like CDF should also be given the first priority in this bill, because some of this money goes directly in support of the activities that are not given a lot of priorities. Mr. Speaker, I urge the committee to ensure that the checks and balances are given, particularly when the revenue is being shared, so that now we don't strain one arm of the government. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I want to ask our fellow members, is there a time that we need to understand that this economy is going through hard times? We are spending a lot of time demonstrating. We are spending a lot of time talking about the high cost of living. We are spending a lot of time telling our young people to put sufurias on their head. We should spend time on how we should pay taxes, because all this money comes through taxation. I therefore request that the committee chaired by my friend Didi Nyolo, that they need to bring a bill in this parliament to ensure that the collectible taxes are collected in good time so that we will be able to fund the activities of the government. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Francis Sigei Sotik.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to this bill, the division of revenue bill. But, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the committee for doing an excellent job. Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Speaker, and the committee have done a very good job. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention one thing which I would like the government to do. And this is the timing of release of funds to the county government. Mr. Speaker, the county government and the devolution have done a very great job in this country. And Mr. Chairman, most of the problems we have in this county governments is the late release of funds to the county governments. The money is released late, and now the services which are given to the people in our counties, and which we have our own voters, are suffering. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention particularly the health sector. We don't have drugs in those hospitals. And when you check on why we cannot have drugs, it's because the national government do not release funds on time. And therefore, we urge the national government to release funds. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we also would like to see the county government being responsible and accountable for what they are doing. Because most of the money which goes to the county government goes to waste because of leakages, misuse of funds, and we want to urge the county government to be responsible. Mr. Speaker, we want to thank the committee, and in this respect, I want to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigei. Honorable Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also lend my voice also to this issue of the division of revenue bill. Mr. Speaker, first I would like to thank the committee, the Budget and Appropriations Committee, for their commitment to the responsibility at hand. We have seen this committee brings a report just in the 2 or 3 reports in the recent past. And we know how much time the committee has to put to be able to come to this level. So I want to just appreciate that the membership of that committee has done an excellent job. Mr. Speaker, the division of revenue is basically when we divide money between the national and the county governments. And I want to just point out that almost every year since I was first elected in 2013, we've had an issue of mediation between the Kenya National Assembly and the Senate, because almost every year when we pass our division of revenue bill, it differs from what the Senate passes. And every time we have to end up going through a mediation process. I want to thank God that every mediation process has succeeded, but it is important to ask ourselves what would happen in the event that there is a collapse of that mediation. So it's very important that the Budget Committee, as they are coming up with their report, they consult, probably just get the views of the Senate, so that we do not have to go this route every year of going through mediation, because anything can happen. Mr. Speaker, it is Parliament that appropriates funds as per the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And I must say that it has been very shocking to see the Council of Governors consistently begging the DP who chairs the IBEC for additional funds. I mean, I just wonder whether these governors of ours have actually read the Constitution, because it is only this House that appropriates funds. And when it comes to the division of revenue, that is the only bill that must go also to Senate, so that Senate also has an input. So it's very, very shocking that on a regular basis, we see the Council of Governors chair, you know, begging the Deputy President, we want more money, please give us more money. I want to advise them, come and do public participation on with the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Bring your views to the Budget Committee so that you can be heard. And the Budget Committee, when it is making their decision to share funds between national and county government, they will be considerate. But when you go to the wrong office to ask for money, Mr. Speaker, then you have yourself to blame. Mr. Speaker, I would also say that I agree with the committee in their decision, because I know governors have been asking for more money, but it is also something that we have noted over the years, that there's so much money that goes to the counties, but very little to show for it. And that's one of the reasons why even when they ask for more money, it becomes fairly difficult for the Budget Committee to give more money. So it's important that they start being more accountable. We want to start seeing value for money. We give them billions, we want to see billions working. Just the way we give very little money to CDF, and those few millions of CDF are educating our children, are building our schools, are building police posts, and are being seen. Every corner of this country, every ward, you will see CDF money. But most constituencies, you'll be hard-pressed to point out even one project done by the county governors. Mr. Speaker, CRA has made a request of 407 billion for the counties. But Mr. Speaker, I have heard the committee chair, he was very eloquent, and he has just said that what we are giving is actually 23% of the last audited accounts, which is far back 2019. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to point out that maybe what they're requesting is not far-fetched, because the Constitution only gives a minimum limit, not a maximum limit. So as long as it is not below 15%, you can even go up to 50%. So, but that is a point for consideration in another year. Right now, let them be accountable, let them show us what they have done with the money that they have been getting all along. I am a strong supporter of the National Assembly and its committees, and so therefore, as a result of that, I am, under obligation to support this, because we, as Parliament, have done it. But I just want to say that I'm also very concerned when I see outsiders wanting to control what we do in the House. It is, and what we do within the precincts of Parliament. Let us ask that people outside this House and this chamber respect the leaders that are here. AZIMIO has its leaders in the House. Kenya Kwanza has its leaders in the House. We don't want to see Secretary Generals and other party officials coming here to lead us, to give statements on our behalf. We can speak for ourselves. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the committee report.
Thank you, Robert Mbui. Honorable Shinali.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also take this opportunity to support the revenue bill. Mr. Speaker, I have interest in one or two areas, Speaker. I have noticed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that last shareable revenue to the county was 370 billion. This time has gone up by 15 billion, Mr. Speaker, which makes to 385 billion to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, which is a good progress because there is an increase in the allocation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the chair has said, the allocation is based on 2019-2020 financial year, Mr. Speaker, which is 23%. I also noticed that even if we did with 2021-22, Mr. Speaker, it comes to 18%, which means, Mr. Speaker, this House is still within the law to pass it, to pass this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also realize that there's a transfer of function of library service to the county governments. We agree it's a devolved function, Mr. Speaker, and also it has gone with the money of 15 billion, Mr. Speaker, under conditional grants to make sure that, Mr. Speaker, these library services are done and employees are paid, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, county governments are always asking for money, more money, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, they complain not receiving money. Mr. Speaker, county funds, according to the law, will never fail to go to the ground. They can delay because of revenue collections, Mr. Speaker, but they always go there. Mr. Speaker, I want also to applaud the committee and the chair, the leadership, for the work they have done in the recent bust, Mr. Chair, and also commend on Kenya Revenue Authority, Mr. Speaker, who of late they have been able to meet their targets, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, formally, we've been given targets by Kenya Revenue Authority, which they have never been able to meet, thus giving wrong projections, false projections, Mr. Speaker, of revenue collection, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to end there and, Mr. Speaker, urge the county governments that the monies that are given to them are monies which have been devolved to certain area to meet development in those areas, Mr. Speaker. So we expect such a money as we even increase this money to the counties, that we are able to see development done in the areas, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of equalization fund. I've seen 8 billion there to specific counties as equalization fund. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the Treasury that they release these funds since the legal structures have been put in place to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that money is sent to these particular areas that equalization fund is targeted to. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you may need to direct the clerk's office to repair some of these seats. They will tear our clothes. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this division of revenue bill. Honorable Speaker, I think as many members have said, there is nothing much on this bill since it's just the vertical division of our revenue, nationally raised revenues. But Honorable Speaker, even as we note, as the Budget and Appropriations Committee has noted, there's a 4% increment on the 2022-2023 figure of 370 billion to now 385. Honorable Speaker, as we did commit when we were campaigning, that we will ensure that continuously we release all functions that should have gone to the county governments. And I'm glad, Honorable Speaker, that in this very first budget, a figure of about 425 million is going towards the transfer of library functions to the counties. And Honorable Speaker, libraries and the establishment of libraries is a very important function, especially towards the growth of literacy levels in our country. And I want to encourage all our county governments not to allow this function to die in their hands. Honorable Speaker, part of the reason why we're in the problems that we are in with our food security is because the moment we devolved agricultural services, and especially extension services in the sector of agriculture, these extension officers who are devolved to the counties have been left without vehicles. They are not facilitated to be able to offer the extension services to farmers. And therefore, farmers are producing without the requisite extension services that we used to get from the national government of the older days. And I want to encourage all our county governments to ensure that they allocate more resources. And I know, Honorable Speaker, there is usually the temptation to allocate resources toward areas where governors and people who are running their offices at the county level are able to get kickbacks. But we want to encourage them to invest money in more productive sectors. Finally, Honorable Speaker, we also must appeal to our governors to ensure that there is proper accountability of all the funds that are devolved to our counties. Over the years, in the first 10 years, Honorable Speaker, since the advent of devolution, we have had trillions of Kenya shillings being devolved to our county governments. But if you compare what has gone to our county governments and what has gone to NGCDF over the years, Honorable Speaker, there is no comparison in terms of getting value for money in projects that are implemented under the NGCDF framework, as opposed that are those that are being rolled out under the county government's framework. Honorable Speaker, the question of pending bills in our county governments, Honorable Speaker, as it is in the national government, even in the county governments, pending bills are the first charge to the exchequer. And our governors must ensure that they settle all the pending bills owed to contractors and other service providers in our county governments, most of whom are struggling hustlers who have offered services, offered goods to county governments, but have gone some for up to 7 years without being paid, Honorable Speaker. And I want to ask especially the new governors, those who have taken office in the first term, to recognize and appreciate that they took over governments that existed before, and governments exist in perpetuity. And therefore, you should not look at pending bills that were incurred by your predecessors as bills that were owed by the person who was a governor before you. Those are bills that are owed to service providers by the respective county governments. Honorable Speaker, let me also use this opportunity to encourage our governors and to speak to those governors who are coming from counties that seem to be enticed to the subversive activities of demonstrations. Honorable Speaker, it is one thing to get revenue coming to your counties. It is one thing to speak to the media and ask investors to come and invest in your counties. When you are a tourist county, like Mombasa, for instance, or Kisumu City, and you are the governor there, you should be the last person to be seen to be entertaining anarchy, destruction of property, looting of people's businesses, while at the same time, you are asking people and investors to come and invest in your cities and towns. We must ask our governors, and I know some of them operate under very strenuous and difficult circumstances because of being lorded over by lords of poverty who want to instigate anarchy. But governors, please protect your counties from the anarchy and abuse by those who think that they can control you, and encourage investors to come and invest in those counties so that governors can be able to not only focus on what is coming from the equitable share of revenue from the national government, but to focus on their own source of revenue. Many of our counties, Honorable Speaker, for instance, the city of Nairobi has no reason even to be depending or to be looking up to the central government or what is being raised nationally to even pay their salaries. But I see all these governors, Mr. Speaker, are always crying, we are waiting for money from the center. Devolution was not just about devolving power, but devolving resources, but also devolving the means of raising resources locally and nationally. The city of Nairobi, for instance, should be contributing, and even the county of Kiambu
that has the potential to generate adequate revenues. They should be contributing to the exchequer by giving part back of what they have raised locally from the exchequer. But we also must encourage them, Honorable Speaker, even as they think on how to raise revenues, they must be sensitive. I have seen the temptation by some governors to institute through their finance bills revenue-raising measures that are detrimental to the growth of the national economy and even their own economies, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, they must strike a very good balance in terms of the revenue-raising measures that they institute locally and how much they will do not to jeopardize their own work and that of the national government. And in those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I can see the Honorable Robert Mbui is getting itched and shifting in his seat when I speak about people being encouraged to entertain anarchy. But I want to tell my dear brothers and sisters, we all live in this country. And whether it is the bloodletting and the thirst for bloodshed that we have seen in some of these leaders, whether it is the looting that we saw yesterday in this city, in Kisumu, and how I pray, as we said earlier, Honorable Speaker, this morning, how I pray that our dear brothers and sisters from Nyanza will emancipate themselves from the slavery that they have been subjected to over the years. It is their businesses that are suffering. Yesterday, Nyeri was vibrant. Kiambu town, when the leader of minority visited there, and the Honorable Kaluma, they saw how vibrant Kiambu town was, even as much as were guests of the state. But at least the 50,000 bond they paid will also go a long way. And we want to encourage the police and support them in ensuring that nobody is above the law. Everybody must and should adhere to our laws. Nobody should encourage looting. Nobody should encourage counties to wait for money from the center while encouraging looting, destruction of property, and bloodshed in our country. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I do support.
Yes, what's the point of order, Dr. Nyikal?
Mr. Speaker, this may relate to standing order number 107A. Maybe not, but you will advise. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for a member to refer to a whole group as enslaved without actually explaining what enslavery means? And Mr. Speaker, I say this because the Honorable Mr. Honorable Ichungwa, that I actually respected, has had a tendency, Mr. Speaker, to make statements that actually in the House causes ill feelings. When we are orderly in the House and you make statements, even not referring to somebody who actually causes ill feeling, with the potential of actually causing disorder, and many times it has done so, because when members feel aggrieved by insinuations and references, it does not even improve the debate. So, Mr. Speaker, is that in order? And look, if you extend 107A, you may find that even talking in a way that can actually cause disorder is in itself disorderly. So I think you can guide us on that, but I would really call upon him to dissuade from this, because people will have a tendency to react in whatever way is necessary.
Thank you. David Ocheng? Is he here? He's on the... Yes, David Ocheng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the geniuses of the new constitution, Mr. Speaker. The genius that we, under the new constitution, decided that monies will go to the grassroots, regardless of who is president or who sits where. And that's why the Division of Revenue Bill comes to this floor every year. Mr. Speaker, this is the means through which we ensure that counties are funded and are funded well. Mr. Speaker, the government of the day has said that they want to ensure that the counties have resources regardless of where they belong politically. And that's why I want to thank the Honorable Ndindi, especially on his comments, that going forward, this Parliament and Senate will ensure that, first of all, the monies approved get down to the counties. Because, Mr. Speaker, that is what is causing problems now. that we sit here, approve monies to the counties. Most of these monies are being taken to the counties very late, June, July. And how I wish, Mr. Speaker, that how hard we fight to get our CDF to our counties, the constituencies, that's the way we fight for the counties to get the exchequers. Because, Mr. Speaker, these monies serve the public. And we, again, in our wisdom as a country, decided to devolve things that are social: health, water, agriculture, Mr. Speaker, sports, culture, all these are devolved. And that's why I agree with my chair that, first of all, the monies we allocate to the counties are meaningless if they cannot go down to the counties on time. Mr. Speaker, number two, and again, most importantly, Mr. Speaker, is that going forward, a way must be found. I agree with Honorable Mbuyi on this matter, that a way must be found for Senate and National Assembly and CRA every year again to agree we cannot keep talking at each other. We have one commission whose only job on earth, Mr. Speaker, the only job CRA has with 7 commissioners on this earth is to set a formula. Now, if they cannot consult, they cannot talk to this House, they cannot talk to the Senate, and every year, that single thing they do, you disagree with it, every year. That people are being paid for, salaries, cars, their only job is set up a formula, which we never used any time for the last 12 years. So we must do it differently. A way must be found to ensure that CRA works with other bodies that make decisions. Mr. Speaker, if you look at this bill and the last part of it, the list of reasons for disagreeing with CRA keep growing since I came to this parliament in 2013. The first time the reasons for disagreeing were around 3-4 paragraphs. They have kept growing every year. And I think we need to bridge that gap, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the kind of money we give the county is agreeable. We can't keep every year, Mr. Speaker, again having to form mediation committees. That, you know, we'll pass 385, tomorrow Senate will refuse, then you have to set up a mediation committee, we get noise, politics comes into it. A way must be found, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we, as decision-making bodies, this Assembly, Senate, CRA, and other bodies concerned can get consensus on this matter, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, number 3, most importantly, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of on-source revenue. We don't get to hear about it in this bill, Mr. Speaker. We don't get to hear how much Siaya County raised on revenue. We don't get to hear how much Busia County raised. In fact, we are told that in some counties, this money is raised in cash. It's not even receipted. No one knows how much it is, Mr. Speaker, and that's why I was telling my chair this morning in the meeting that a way again must be found to ensure that this Assembly, not just Senate, this Assembly gets to know how much money did Siaya raise in their own revenues, how much did Kisumu raise, how much did Nairobi raise every year, so that even as we do these allocations, and as we talk about how the government refuses to give them more money, we know how much are they raising in those counties, which are these revenue measures that they're using, and where does the money go? So that even as we raise this money, Mr. Speaker, the counties have declared, and they go around saying that they are governments, which I agree with. If they're governments, they must also show us how responsible are they? How much are they raising every year? How are they supporting themselves as counties? Very important, Mr. Speaker, so that we get to know that along the way, these counties become sustainable units that can survive on their own. That is what was meant at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, from where I sit, I also want to urge, again, this Assembly, that if in case along the year, times become better and more monies are raised by the national government, Mr. Speaker, let's also get as a practice that if times become better and there's more money at national government level, we're able to again send some more down regardless of how much we raise today. If, for example, along the year, the economy grows, the KRA is able to collect more money, and we realize that the government is raising more, then there's nothing harmful, there's nothing wrong in saying this year we raised $1 billion more, can each county get 100 million shillings more from what you have raised? So that this National Assembly is seen to be not just supporting devolution, but sharing resources again, not just horizontally, but also vertically when things are better, Mr. Speaker. Because we're in this together as a people. We're in this together as a country. When the counties are doing well, the national government will do well. Mr. Speaker, something has been talked about here that I must talk about. But as we seek now to grow the economy, stabilize the economy, Mr. Speaker, agriculture is still the backbone of this country. There is something we missed out on that hurts agriculture so much today. Someone mentioned it earlier, about the extension services, Mr. Speaker. If we don't extend enough, I wish we had money in this particular bill for conditional grants to counties to extend extension services to county government so that they are able to support their farmers in that regard, Mr. Speaker. I know a number of counties are giving seed. Some counties for a long time, Mr. Speaker, gave out cows, bulls, goats. But in most counties, these goats died within a week or two. Because you are giving breeder goats to people who have never bred goats in their lives. You are giving dairy cows to people who have never had dairy cows in their lives. And because we don't have dairy, we don't have good extension service, Mr. Speaker, most of these cows died. There's nothing someone could do about them. And that's why I wish that we could extend more money in that regard. Mr. Speaker, finally, again on this, how I wish again we could get more money, especially from the sports fund, if possible, and again extend cultural grants to the counties to enable us to develop county, what we are calling constituency academies, Mr. Speaker. I share to imagine how many people would travel from my place in Ugenya to come and watch a football match in Siaya at the county headquarters. So many people will travel from all the way in Lugari to come and watch football in Kakamega Stadium. How many people are going to travel all the way from Nyakacha, near Nandi, to go and travel, to go and watch matches or practice in Kisumu Stadium? We need to put more money in sports, and if counties have no money, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this assembly is able to allocate a conditional grant to these counties, develop especially county-based, ward-based sports academies that would take account of all the sports, basketball, sprinting, Mr. Speaker, volleyball, netball, for those people from Western Kenya who would excel in these sports. It will be very good for them because this is the future of the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to also request the counties, as we give them this money, they must insist. The national government, let them not go into areas where national government is supposed to fund. I've been seeing counties putting so much money in bursaries for university students, for high school students, yet they know that their mandate is at the ECD level. That is the foundation of education. Fund that one first. We want to see your children having meals in school, staying in school in those villages. Don't come out here and tell us, oh, we have given all our students university bursaries. Yet the children who are 5, 6, 7 years, who need their services, whose services have been devolved are not being taken care of. Build enough ECDs. Feed these children. Make their parents feel they're part of those counties. So that, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I wonder. We had a very good system of county governance. But when people get to be governors, I don't know where their minds go. Even the best that you've had. People want to do things for the camera. People want to please each other. I wish that we could do as leaders things that make us happy in the evening because we touch a life, because we change our lives of the people that we lead, not because we took a selfie. Mr. Speaker, I support and thank you.
Ruth Odinga, Women Rep Kisumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to say I support the budget, but I'd like to make a few comments, Mr. Speaker. First of all, it's a very good thing that money goes down to the county governments, and I'm so happy that we have added 15 million to this budget that is going to the counties. Counties are actually our backbone, and it is important that we actually give them the money. But I'm also very worried, having worked in the county governments, that there's no way we monitor this money that goes to the county government, Mr. Speaker. It's important that the Auditor General always does audits to all the county governments, and these audit reports are existing. Nothing is ever done on these audit reports to hold accountable the governors and the county governments on the issue of the money that they get. It is very important that they keep on asking for more money, and we keep on giving them more money is being allocated like now, but there must be some system that is going to be able to monitor so that this money is monitored. Secondly, like I agree with Honorable of Ugenya, David Ochieng, it is important, Mr. Speaker, that the agriculture is the backbone of this country. And if we can be able to give more money to agriculture and look at how the agricultural systems are working, it is very important that the majority leader was talking about an issue of extension officers getting vehicles. There are literally no extension officers in these our counties. The last time employment was done in agricultural department probably is about the 90s. Up to now, we have very old extension officers, most of them have retired. And yet there's no new people being, recruitment. Even the children who are agronomists are not being employed by the government. And so many of them are not even going to college anymore to do this. So I think that we need to give more attention to agriculture. On the other point that I would like to really state is the one I would like to really state would be on the issue of us discussing, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of talking about the responsibility within the government. I would like to state this, and this is my parting remarks before I say I support. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to state to the majority is not here that it is the enslaved. You're here. Yeah, it's actually surprising that you are talking about the people who are enslaved. The liberators are the ones you're calling enslaved. I would like you to come over so that I can teach you how I'll liberate you. Thank you. And please, let's add some more tear gas to the budget, next budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, member for Madeira. Order. Member for Madeira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on order number 95. Mr. Speaker, I feel that this matter has been extensively discussed, Mr. Speaker, and I'm calling upon yourself, Mr. Speaker, to request the mover of the motion to reply, Mr. Speaker.
Is that the mood of the House? Is that the mood of the House? Yes. Honorable Undo, what is the problem? I'll give you 2 minutes, then I put the question. I call the mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We have argued that this is a house of debate. We should be allowed to debate matters of national interest without being gagged by probably people who can make more noise than the rest.
Honorable Undo, I've given you the floor to debate.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Why do you want to go into irrelevancies?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the Division of Revenue Bill, and in view of the shortened time, allow me to make 2 important remarks. Number 1, when the people who fought for devolution did not intend devolution to be a center of expenditure. They thought devolution was going to be a center of production and contributes towards the exchequer and the national development. As we stand now, Honorable Speaker, 99% of all the time, the governors spend all the time whining that they have not received any money from the national government, they have not done what and what, and many times I've challenged them. During the days of local government authorities, they never used to receive much from the national government, yet they used to run their programs. It's a wake-up call to all the county governors and county governments to put into place adequate measures to collect enough internal revenue, on-source revenue, to fund quite a number of these activities. For example, Nairobi City County, Honorable Speaker, would surely never require any money from the national government. They have enough resources. They have land rates, they have licenses, they have all over many sources of revenue. We should stop this habit once and for all. Second, Honorable Speaker, I also want to echo my colleagues. There is a lot of leverage, there is a lot of loss of money in the counties. Probably much, much more than we lose at the national level. It's a wake-up call again to the governors. Put into place measures and ensure that devolution funds are felt all over the place the way CDF fund has been felt in every village of this country. Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bills should not be a political tool that any new governor who comes in punishes those contractors who worked under the previous government to settle political scores. Just as we do national government, they must be a first charge. And once they have been verified, they must be paid without delay, Honorable Speaker. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge the county governments, once they receive their money, they should win themselves this big boy mentality of always rushing to the national government
hobbling through one state department to another, looking the free balls called development. They have their money. Let their money work for them. There's no money left here in the national government to give the county government. They have got the shareable revenue of 385 billion. Let them go work with that money. Instead of living in Nairobi here, spending money that we are coming, taking flights to Nairobi, looking for per diem to come to Nairobi, spend in your counties and work for the people with the money you have and collect money from the various places so that we move forward. Honorable Speakers, I conclude, as we prepare, we need to look at the budget, but unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, the tear gas being used now is so diluted, corruption has even entered into procurement of tear gas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ndindi Nyoro, you may now reply. I had said I was giving him the last one, so there was no need for a question. But if you want, I can put the question. The mover be called upon to reply. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Ndindi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank all the members for their contribution to this bill. And Mr. Speaker, we have taken a lot of time to evaluate the performance of our counties. And I said when I was moving, there is a lot of structural issues that needs to be done to continue strengthening our counties. Like the issues of pending bills, there is a reason why it is never found in CDF, because the structure of CDF does not allow any kind of pending bills. And we hope progressively we'll be able to have that kind of strength within the structures of devolution. Mr. Speaker, lastly, on a light note, I have listened to my sister, Ruth, in regards to tear gas, and I want to confirm to this House, in the supplementary, in the BPS, and also neither in the current consideration, Mr. Speaker, that you are considering, unfortunately or fortunately because you have been able to go around the country, and you have seen the Kenyan people are very peaceful, Mr. Speaker. We were not able to provision the kind of wastes that tear gas would bring. And therefore, the only tear gas available currently is the tear gas that remained in 2007, the ones that remained in 2013, and the others that remained on 2017. And Mr. Speaker, checking on the expiry dates, some of them could be stale. And therefore, as the people demonstrate, they could be, Mr. Speaker, endangering themselves in coming to inhale tear gas that could not be very proper, Mr. Speaker, but expired. But if it permits, the Honorable Ruth request, Mr. Speaker, if this House deems it possible, Mr. Speaker, we can allocate money for fresh tear gas, Mr. Speaker, so that we can satisfy Honorable Ruth Odinga. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I reply.
I now put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, be now read a second time. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2023-2024 financial year and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 15, Committee of the Whole House.
Order, honorable members, you may be upstanding.
Order, members. We are now constituted as a committee of the whole House to deliberate on the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 9 of 2023.
Clauses 3, 4, and 5.
I propose the question that clause 3 be part of the bill. I propose the question that clause 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. I now put the question that clause 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Schedule.
I propose the question that the schedule be part of the bill. Member for Funyula.
Chair, is it possible you could compel the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee to listen so that he can answer, or do I proceed is unanswered? He'll miraculously hear what I'm talking about.
Honorable Undo.
Chair,
please continue.
I'm interested for further clarification on D, equitable share, and this explanatory memorandum where they are transferring the library services to the counties to a tune of 425 million. Probably the chair would probably explain to the nation and the members of public and members of this house what happens to Kenya National Library Services as currently constituted. And secondly, it would seem the 425 is only payroll related. What happens to other recurrent expenditures and development expenditures, even the supplies of books and other reading material? Probably needs that explanation so that even at the county level they are able to understand, members of public are able to understand, because they've continuously been texting me what happens to the library services known now. We need to a bit of expounding so that the common mwananchi can understand. Thank you. Sasa umekuwa excited.
Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The approximately 430 million Kenya shillings is a transfer, Madam Chair, to the counties, because as it is, Madam Chair, library services forms part of the devolved functions. And what we are trying to do, Madam Speaker, is to transfer gradually and sequentially that function. We have just started with the salaries, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the other allocations will follow. And Daktari is aware, Madam Chair, devolution is not an event, it is a process, and we are in that process, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll now put the question that the schedule be part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. I now put the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose the question that the title be part of the bill. I propose the question that the title be the title of the bill. I now put the question that the title be the title of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. I now put the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover of the bill.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, and its approval thereof without amendments.
I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, and its approval thereof without amendments. I've not put the question.
Chairperson of the Committee of the Whole.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, and approval of the same without amendments.
Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Eric Mushagi Kareba, who is the chairman for the Labour Committee in the National Assembly, to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable Karemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I second.
I propose the question that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. No, you don't want to contribute. Even, you're done. Is the mood of the House that I put the question? I put the question that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover to move that reading.
But, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, be now read at that time. I also request Honorable Rahab Mukami, the Nyeri County Women Rep, to second.
Honorable Chair, I second.
Honorable members, I propose the question that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, be now read a third time. Any contributions? Is it the mood of the House that I put the question? Why are you lifting your hand? The Member of Parliament seated next to the chair. Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, you need to, the Honorable for Kiharu need to know that I am a member for Madera constituency, not Muranga County, Mr. Speaker. I am supporting that the bill be read for at that time, Mr. Speaker.
and with no further mention, without further ado, isn't it? Yes. Okay, it being the mood of the House that we put the question. Okay. I have confirmed that we have the requisite quorum in the House for purposes of making a decision. I therefore put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2023, be now read a third time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2023-2024 financial year and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 16, motion, report of the sessions of the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific States and the European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly.
A very interesting debate, particularly members, if you look at Annex 10 on those LGBTQ matters as conditions upon which we should be signing the ACP-EU post-Cotonou Agreement Protocol. So those members who are running out should take interest and contribute. Honorable Eric Muchangi.
Honorable Chair, I would wish to add a few more comments to the issue of the report on the Caribbean and Pacific states and the European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, I need to say that if there are any conditions that Kenya is going to be given to be part of this union, Mr. Speaker, it should not include the requirement that this country supports the issues to do with homosexuality and lesbianism. Because, Mr. Speaker, our country, Kenya, is a religious nation where we believe that a man should marry a woman. And Mr. Speaker, when God created man, Adam, he created also a woman from the rib of the man. Yeah? If God desired that a man marries another man, he would have created a man, a second man. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not support the idea of imposing conditions for us to be part of this union. Let Kenya be left alone to decide its fate. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, just like all other religious institutions have said, including the Muslim community, the Akorino community, the Anglican Church of Kenya, led by the Archbishop Ole Sapit, all have indicated that Kenya should not be left to allow men to marry men and women to marry women. So, Mr. Speaker, let us agree on other issues to do with trade, because Kenya has a lot of farming happening, coffee farming, tea farming, and we have opportunities to sell our coffee and our tea in those other countries, but we do not have to engage when it comes to matters as to whether we should allow homosexuality and lesbianism to continue. So, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Honorable Muchangi. The Honorable Millie Grace Odhiambo Mabona, Senior Counsel. You want to contribute to this?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm hearing Honorable Rosa Buyu asking whether I've been Senior Counsel. And I want to clarify for her that there is a Senior Counsel that is assigned by law, but there is a Senior Counsel by virtue of practice. Yes. And by virtue of practice, by years that I've served, as a matter of fact, I am a Senior Counsel and more senior than some so designated. That is a matter of law and practice.
Did you say, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, that Honorable Rosa Buyu is doubting the wisdom of the Speaker to refer to you as Senior Counsel?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually educating her that senior counsel is in two ways. When I go to a courtroom, I will be given precedence over anybody who was admitted after me.
What is out of order, Deputy Majority Leader?
You know, Mr. Speaker, there are times when the military clarified that one Major Waluke and Captain are not captains or majors. So it was wrong for them to use titles like that in this House. And I think it was made very clear. So if the honorable member, who I have a lot of respect for, has not officially earned the title of senior counsel, which is provided for in statutes in this country, then she should wait for her time, bid for her time, so that she can get there. And I would love to call you senior counsel because you deserve it, but wait for your time, sweetheart.
Honorable Baya, you are being smart. You are contradicting the Speaker while pretending to be addressing Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Remember, it is the Speaker who recognized the Honorable Millie Odhiambo as senior counsel for the experiences, particularly on matters children, matters family, and the matters she is proceeding to address us about. So don't bring the judgment of the Speaker to the question. It is not allowed. Honorable Millie, you will proceed. And
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank Honorable Owen Baya for calling me sweetheart. And I will call back and call him sweetheart. And having called him sweetheart, I will take the opportunity to educate him that in the legal profession, you become senior by virtue of when you sign the role of advocate. So anybody who signs the role of advocate after me is my junior. So to that extent, I am a senior advocate vis-a-vis anybody who has signed after me. And that is very many lawyers. So by that virtue alone, I am a senior counsel. However, in the last few years, the Law Society deemed it fit to select a few people and designate a title called senior counsel. That does not preclude me from being a senior counsel. I am still senior to a number of people, even within this House, who are designated as senior counsel. They are still my juniors, as a matter of fact. But having said that, I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I want to support that report, but I want to avoid your pet subject, which is LGBTQI. And Mr. Speaker, the reason I will avoid that subject is because it has no impact on litmus paper in relation to my life. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak instead to the issue of the treaty of the ACPU. I have been a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and in this session, I was actually hoping to be a member of the ACPU Parliament. And one of the reasons that I am not pursuing it is because of the issue of the expired treaty, which I was hoping would be designated along the lines of the Pan-African Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the way the Pan-African Parliament is designated, is such that once we have a new parliament, the Parliament of Kenya will designate 5 people that we pass through this floor, and you become a member of that parliament for 5 years. And you are able to contribute meaningfully in that parliament for 5 years. But what is happening now is, by the structure of the ACPU, is that we only have 2 members who you could say are permanent members, who are the speakers. So when I actually requested to be designated there, then Mr. Speaker, I was told I can attend some sessions. And as the so-called senior lawyer that I am, I don't want to attend a conference. I want to be a member of a parliament. I don't want to be in a conference. And so I'm very happy, and I want to thank the members of this parliament and the Senate across the floor who in absentia elected me to the IPU, Committee on Human Rights of Parliamentarians, and by that designation, I stand to sit in the IPU Parliament for 2 years. And I have been there for the last, we've had actually 2 sessions. It's a very powerful committee. but also a very important committee because it deals with issues of human rights of parliamentarians. And I want to say that one of the things that I want to thank God for as a country is that we have made serious progress in terms of human rights, and I'm hoping that this country does not go back on the mileage that we have had in terms of human rights. If you see some of the things that my committee in IPU deals with, parliamentarians, like one woman parliamentarian who was shot dead because she could not agree to marry an army general. We have cases of women who are gang raped members of parliament because you don't agree with the executive. We have people who midway their term, they are stopped from being members of parliament. But even more recently, I won't mention because it's a friendly country, one of the countries actually we had members of the police in uniform getting into parliament. Mr. Speaker, those are things that we hope we never see in this parliament of Kenya, or something close to what we saw in 2014 when we were dealing with the Security Laws Amendment Bill. And I'd want to encourage, and that's why some of us come on very strongly, when we see even indications of violations of human rights or things that look like dictatorial tendencies that are emerging by this government. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage that even as the government of Kenya is negotiating over the ACPU, the new treaty, our main focus should be actually the structure and the powers that we have within the ACPU. Because I've talked to some of the members who have served in the ACPU, and their concerns is that the power tilts much more towards Europe than it does to the Pacific or the African countries. And one of the things that I'd also want to encourage is to find a way of creating connections without making it an appendage of the Pan-African Parliament, because one of the things that I've heard being said is that they want to see how they can make ACPU sort of an appendage. One of the things that I've seen through even the recently meeting that we attended in Bahrain, in Manama, on the IPU, is that it gives us opportunities, despite our diverse cultures, to discuss issues that are of concern to us as the world, as a globe, as Africa, and even as Kenya, so that we put forth our issues. The tragedy, of course, that from the African perspective is we never seem to speak with one voice. I'm hoping that Kenya can take leadership, which it already is doing very well, and I want to congratulate our speakers for the leadership that they have shown. And Kenya is doing a very, very strong showing in the IPU, and our voices on various issues is heard very, very strongly. We spoke very recently about the issue of climate change that is bringing a lot of crisis, and I want to really regretfully say that one of those aspects is this afternoon, one of the persons from my village called Richard Ndege was killed by a hippo, because now the hippos are invading the homes. And I'm actually calling the wildlife that they must, Kenya wildlife, that they must see that there's something that they must do to make sure that they create that sort of balance, even as we are dealing with issues of climate change. Mr. Speaker, I'd want to say that some of the things that we must be negotiating as a country, even in the new ACPU agreement, is to ensure the inclusion of women and to make sure that the voices of women is heard and that is entrenched in the treaty, the number of women who will be permanent members of the ACPU. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support and thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Millie Grace Akoth Odhiambo. Very informative, always on matters we overlook as Parliament. The Honorable Dr. Wilberforce Oundo, the MP for Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Legislation, as we always say, transcends national boundaries. Legislation, as we say, must bring some form of cooperation and pursue the endless goal of globalization. So there must be some uniform sets of rules, regulations, and laws that wherever you go, if it's an offense of murder, it remains a uniform offense of murder. And that's why it is important that whenever we have an opportunity, Kenya, Africa, and all other countries join an association where cross-cutting legislative issues and emerging issues can be deliberated. That's why I stand here today, this moment, Honorable Speaker, to note and make comments on this report in respect of Organization of African, Caribbean, Pacific States Parliamentary Assembly that was tabled in the House sometimes late last year. Honorable Speaker, perusing through this report briefly, it touches on quite a number of issues in the main body, but more tellingly, Honorable Speaker, because when you look at it, the common principles that's supposed to be a basis of discussion is democracy and human rights, sustainable economic growth and development, climate change, human social development, peace and security, migration and mobility. Honorable Speaker, I have had quite a number of comments from colleagues and from other participants, and they basically have an issue based on Annex 10. And when you look at Annex 10, the report seems to analyze some and bring and highlights some extremely disturbing issues that we as African continent, we as Christians, I as a Christian, I do not know what religion the speaker professes, but occasionally see him looking as if he's a Christian, and I do believe he's also a Christian and shares with us, is actually after continuing towards a new agreement with the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific states.
Ondo, did you ask about the religion of the speaker?
Yes, so that we are on the same lines.
The speaker is a Christian and a practicing Catholic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Then I can speak on a matter where the speaker also appreciates the importance. Honorable Speaker, there is an attached analysis. The Cotonou agreement has ended, then discussion of a new agreement, and when you look at analysis, Honorable Speaker, it'll allow me to pick a few issues here and there, and I will read verbatim, even though I'm fully aware that we are not supposed to read a written text when we make a general contribution on the floor of the House. For example, examples of governance structure and funding changes. It emerges that the AU will be the one having dominance in each one of 3 protocols. Honorable Speaker, it is scaring. Yes, we might not be as developed as EU. We might not have exploited our resources as effectively and efficiently as EU. But to treat African countries and Caribbean countries as second-rate participants in the agreement is truly to take away the meaning of a treaty. From a very basic understanding, a treaty is a negotiated document that gives each party to the document equal or equitable powers and the authority to make decisions and participate. On that score alone, Honorable Speaker, it would seem this agreement, post-agreement, is extremely loop-sided. Honorable Speaker, again, we stopped being colonized by the Europeans. It is important they allow us to go forward. But Honorable Speaker, in contrast, the pending treaty will mandate compliance with a variety of new alleged human rights that the European Union is pushing, including abortion, controversial, comprehensive sexuality education for young children, and special LGBT rights. Honorable Speaker, that is antithesis. That is unacceptable for Kenya, it's unacceptable for many Africans, and it's unacceptable to many right-thinking people of God. Honorable Speaker, it is important that whoever is charged
Honorable Undo, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to repeat, controversial comprehensive sexual education for young children and special LGBT rights. Honorable Speaker, Our older generation is going through so many problems. We are only looking upon to our young people to salvage this generation. When you go to European countries and the countries in the North, Honorable Speaker, generally, the social fabric of a family is broken. They should not let the stress of broken families be transferred to us. We are not the cause of their broken families. They should leave us with our strong family values. Probably that's the only thing that we have pride of that we need to have with ourselves. Honorable Speaker, we are Africans, and Africa is our business. We must protect the sanctity of the family. We must protect the character of the family, because we here in Africa, we do not have very strong social welfare programs. We depend on these children. Honorable Speaker, some of us would die of heart attack if it ever came across our mind that any of our children are LGBT. Honorable Speaker, we should not allow in any way that this Parliament of Kenya, this government, current government, institutionalize the demolition of family values in this particular moment. I would therefore urge our colleagues who are privileged to participate in the negotiation for this post-continuum agreement to stamp the authority firmly, squarely, and without fear, and clearly say, let the agreement majorly focus on trade issues, and let us redefine human rights in the context of Africa. Otherwise, then, Honorable Speaker, we are literally dragging our continent, our country, to ape values, culture, and traditions that are extremely alien to us, that are going to destroy the very little that we have with us. Honorable Speaker, with those very few remarks, I know time is up, but allow me, Honorable Speaker, again, just to mention the issue of climate change. Honorable Speaker, it's the industrialized world that has damaged the climate. Climate change, the negative impacts of climate change are a direct consequences of unbridled push to basically destroy the natural environment for purposes of industrialization. The European countries, the countries in the north, should be in the forefront in providing resources towards mitigating climate change. Honorable Speaker, yesterday I watched briefly a documentary on Al Jazeera, and they were telling us the window to save the globe, to save the earth, is slowly closing, and that unless the European Union and those industrialized countries are able to address carbon emission, we are likely to destroy this world. Let them destroy their part. Let them allow us to whatever little we have left with us. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on this motion. Thank you.
Which honorable member is the member greeting the Honorable Dr. Koske? That member looks, the member whose necktie looks like the top of Honorable Millie Grace. Which member is that? In fact, I saw you talking with Honorable Millie Grace. You know, I know the Constitution a special place. Honorable Jared Okello, Honorable Jared, the Constitution has a special place for our senior members like Dr. Koske, but that does not permit you to cross the floor in the manner you have done. So why don't you just do as we normally do, then you continue? After you do as you should. I thank you very much. You wish to say something in relation to that conduct?
Correct.
Give him a minute.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Whereas I was also quite interested in the topic of discussion, and I was placing myself on a seat because I understand this is your pet subject, Honorable Speaker. I firstly want to apologize for crossing the floor unnecessarily. But Honorable Bishop here is a very good friend of mine, dating back several years. And when I see him, sometimes we are being overtaken by positive emotions. So that is why I did that, but I really, really apologize. As a Seventh-day Adventist, Honorable Speaker, your pet subject sits at the core and central to my values and considerations. And I wish that even as you debate and as you go through the mud waters in this, taking into consideration that there are many, many organizations out to sponsor and pour money so that we can devalue our moral standards as a nation, that you...
Honorable Jared Okello, you're making some very good contributions. But did I ask, you see, you were to apologize, which was also a discretion on your part. If you comply, the standing orders don't require that you verbalize your apology. Is it within your intent to contribute to the motion? Because I'm worried beyond apology, you're now contributing. Do you intend to contribute to the motion?
Honorable Speaker, I may want to contribute to the motion if time will allow.
You want to contribute?
I will want to comprehensively contribute to the motion.
Yes, so the apology is ended and done with. I would request you take your seat. I want to recognize you and give you a chance to contribute.
I stand guided, Honorable Speaker.
After we allow Honorable Okuome Adepo, who was the next next in line to contribute.
I stand guided and thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah. In fact, Honorable Jared Okello, I'm being informed you had contributed to this motion. You may need to confirm, because the standing orders may restrict my allowing you to contribute, which would be my best wish. Honorable Andrew Okuome, the MP for Karachuonyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy you have given me a chance. Now, a regional organization like ACPU is very important, and I have therefore to contribute to it. Now, the one thing I must say is that if we have ACPU and strengthen it even more in the new renewal, it will help us more, especially we Kenyans who are in the lower stage of development. I want to really urge my colleagues that we give support to this motion and emphasize that this will help us in strengthening human relations and dignity. This is important because we know, for example, the rights of humanity has been interfered with by several people. The climate change is another very important factor affecting the world over. And when we have a regional body like ACPU, our voice will be heard. It will be heard much more than if we were speaking alone as Kenyans. I therefore feel that we should give support to this motion. I have also in mind LGBT, which really needs a collective action of all of us, the countries of goodwill to godliness. If we join together as ACP and oppose that kind of thing, I think we will be contributing positively to humanity. I also do realize that there are many things that come along in the world for which we need some unity of some collective voice. And ACPU is very important for us, really. The human value has been downgraded a number of times. The LGBT I was talking about is another factor that degrades humanity. And I think in general, and in support of human values, trade, communication, and all the rest of them, I do support this motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Andrew Okwome. The Honorable Jackson Kosgei, nominated MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Regional cooperations are necessary to the extent of sharing common interests of nations and communities. The problem over time, Mr. Speaker, is that when some of the nations have been trying to impose their will on other nations in the name of cooperation with conditions. The reason why the Eastern countries have risen up of late in terms of trade and influence in Africa is because they have encouraged cooperation without conditionalities that affects the fiber of every society. I am of the opinion, Mr. Speaker, that Africa should be understood within our own context. We have a history where other cultures have been imposed on us through cohesion. Of understanding in recent history is the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 85, where countries and powers of the world shared Africa amongst themselves. Without consultation, Africa was not part of it. In it, it had two dimensions. One was territorial acquisition of African continent and sharing up amongst themselves. The second one is what you can consider as hegemonic kind of expansion, which was about to dominate others in terms of culture and religion. And they were very clear, Mr. Speaker. They spoke and they agreed that Africa must be conquered in terms of territory and also through religion, conquer their culture. It has survived all those years. Our fathers stood firm and maintained our cultures in terms of moral values. Today, as we discuss this subject, we are so concerned, not because some people would like to engage in it, and that some people would not like about them for that, but we are concerned because it affects a very important institution, and that is the institution of family, that has made Africa survive all the tests and challenges of history. We were taken to slavery, our people, over 4 million, but Africa survived because of family. We have had malaria and diseases and civil wars. We have been held together as a continent because of family. We may not be perfect, but thank God we had families. Anything that redefines, reduces the meaning of our families is the enemy for Africa. We cannot give ourselves and give our children as an inheritance any process that can kill and finish our people. So, Mr. Speaker, whereas we would like to agree with the regional cooperation and the intention in it, whether it is trade, others, we must be respected in our own stand in terms of diversity. If it is human right to be inclusive, then diversity must be human right enough for us to be respected for what we believe. Mr. Speaker, I will support this motion as long as that part which talks about interference with the family values and our values as Africa should be expunged. The others we can support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And Dr. Koske, I hope you didn't need more time, because it is always very refreshing to listen to you on matters of morals and Africa. Would I hope you did not curtail your time because time was up, you didn't need additional time. The Honorable Joseph Kangara Larry, MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity also to contribute to matters concerning this treaty. And let me start by saying that the original treaty, as it were, of course, was taking care of a number of issues that affected people within the Caribbean and the African countries. But whatever is being introduced at the moment, actually, originally, we say that the agreement addressed the issues of human rights, but whatever is being introduced currently, as many members have said, we have seen that they're talking about explicit sexual education to children. And considering that most African countries, we have cultures. We belong to different cultures where we have our own way of doing things. Our children, and of course, even here in Kenya, even issues of marriage for children, we only say that you can only get married after attaining the age of 18. If anybody wants to introduce an issue where we are going to expose our children to sexual education when they have not attained the adult age of 18, then that is something that would say we would not be able to agree to that. Mr. Speaker, the issue of LGBTQ, which is about men marrying men and women marrying other women, that is an African, because as we all know, in the African society, we have never had anything of that sort, where women are marrying women, because we knew that from the beginning, a man was meant to marry a woman for purposes of reproduction. Even if you go back to the Bible, when God created man and eventually created woman, they were actually meant to be co-creators. They were meant to work together with God for purposes of creation. You can only create, you can only bring forth a human being when there is consummation between a man and a woman. There is no reproduction that is going to happen when a man marries another man and a woman marries another woman. So beside our African culture, we also find that where we belong, and I profess the Catholic faith like the speaker, even in our own faith, this is something that it is not acceptable, because all we know is that man, woman are supposed to come together to reproduce and to bring forth life, which does not happen when a man marries man or woman marries a woman. The issue of abortion. When we want to allow abortion to happen at any particular moment, we are saying that whatever God has created, we are giving man that opportunity to go ahead and murder, because that's the way I would put it as a Catholic. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that whatever is being introduced by the Europeans in this particular treaty is an African, is against our religion, is not even in the original treaties that were being signed by the Caribbean and the African countries. It's something that is being introduced. And I understand from reading through the report that even the parliamentarians or the members of the Pan-African, Caribbean Parliament have not even been consulted on the matter. It is just something that is being introduced, and Mr. Speaker, I would stand to say that the treaty as originally was is something that would be acceptable. But whatever is being introduced now, Mr. Speaker, I would definitely and vehemently oppose. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kangara, Honorable Rosa Buyu, you want to contribute to this motion? The MP for Kisumu West is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, right from the onset, I'd like to say that I support the motion, but I'd also like to say that I've also had an opportunity to attend one of the meetings of ACP EU. And the greatest thing about it, Mr. Speaker, is that it brings different nations together, and they are able to contribute and discuss issues that affect them in the way that it affects them. Mr. Speaker, this, however, is an opportunity with the expiry of this treaty. It's an opportunity for ACPU to actually take the advantage and have a more structured, become a more structured organization. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I say this is there's no permanency in membership of ACP EU. I attended a meeting, one meeting. I was never invited for the next meeting. Other members then attended. So, Mr. Speaker, then it kills continuity of discussion and implementation of some of those ideas that, wonderful ideas that come up. So if we agree as a parliament to actually renew this treaty, we must take that opportunity to have a more structured organization. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to say that if you compare the membership of ACP EU with the membership of Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that Pan-African Parliament is more impactful on our issues. Why? Because members, for example, are able to serve for 5 years. So they are able to see through, to introduce a topic or an idea and able to see it through to implementation because of the 5 years length of time, which, however, misses in this organization. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I know that we must sit as a parliament to agree as to whether we should go on and renew this treaty. But I would urge Parliament that if it becomes a more structured organization, it is indeed useful and would still be helpful to our cause. Mr. Speaker, with that, I thank you and I support.
Rosa Buyu for that contribution and a good point. I hope those who are participating. Please do, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I too, on onset, support the motion. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Millie, Senior Counsel, has just reminded me that you can be married and still not reproduce. So that aspect of being married for reproduction is what she was trying to correct. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that the treaty has expired, the ACPU. Mr. Speaker, it is an opportunity for member states to restructure it along the Pan-African particularly, so that Pan-African Parliament, which is 5 years, because with the current structure as it is, there is lack of permanency. And having different people coming in at a given time does not work well for the organization. Mr. Speaker, I also have reservation on certain aspects of the treaty, on areas that member states are forced to sign, on areas that might be foreign to their culture. For instance, Mr. Speaker, on areas like LGBTQ, we know the controversy around it, and as a people, the African people, we don't support that culture. So issues such as that should be open to members to decide on what is good for them and what they shouldn't put their, or append their signature on. With those few remarks, so that I don't repeat what other members have said, thank you very much. I support once again. Thank you.
Honorable John Kiragu, MP for Limuru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute. On the onset, I want to say that I support the report. I note that since 1975, the Cotonou Agreement gave directions and to the directions of how the treaty should move. But we see another one of 2000, the Rome Convention, which gave the treaty another 20 years. And I can see that it has been renegotiated to end this June 2023. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it is good to have this treaty, but when you look at Africa and Caribbean, Mr. Speaker, you find that these are countries that have been colonized. These are countries that have undergone slavery. And sometimes, Mr. Speaker, sitting with the former masters and helping us to chart our future, it is not sometimes the best thing to do. I realize that, in fact, in the same period, Mr. Speaker, the Asian countries have moved and have left us behind. They have liberated themselves. They have grown economically. I see that one of the key things in this treaty was to eradicate poverty. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the 20 years, I don't think much has happened. We are in partnership with some of the strongest countries in Europe, the countries that for some years they have impoverished the African countries, taken our minerals out of Africa, have given us some democracies and leadership that has not helped the African countries. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that as a continent, and particularly with our brothers in the Caribbean, that we must ask ourselves, what is it that we need to put into our leadership so that we can truly get independence economically? We appreciate the effort and the assistance that has been given to us as the developing countries, but there is a problem because the assistance that has been given to us does not seem to help the nations that are in this agreement to make a breakthrough. So, Mr. Chairman, mine is to say that it is okay to have this treaty. It is okay for people to meet, but there must be, positive things that come out of these treaties. But for the Africans and Caribbean to, again, be taken through another phase where we lose our moral position, particularly as a matter to do with this LGBTQ, I think is not acceptable. I think we know how to lead ourselves. We know we have suffered long enough. We have no time now to cry over colonialism or slavery. What we need to do is to look forward and look at the East Asia, how they have been able to liberate themselves. Some of them were colonized almost at the same time with us, but they have left us behind. But we should not be spending so much time on discussions, on submitting ourselves to other moral standards of others, but we must chart our way forward. I believe when we meet in all these international forums, we must not lose who we are. And we must also work to make sure that we chart a new direction to liberate Africa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kiragu. The Honorable Dr. Naomi Wako, do you want to have a bite at this?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this motion of the report of sessions of the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific States and the European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important assembly and it has been in existence for years, but currently it's coming to expiry, and so I support the motion as I begin. I support the motion and pray that the suffering or the challenges that the African Caribbean have gone through because of our background and what has happened in the past should not be happening. And the other thing is the meetings or the treaty should be promoting our businesses and should be promoting our progress, but not bring any negative impact on us. And that brings me to the issue of LGBTQ that has been debated in our nation for the last many months and many days now, and which is almost bringing, division to our country. And it is simply because the LGBTQ, which promotes the idea of women marrying women, men marrying women, is against our African culture. It is against our African culture because in the history of African culture, that has never been heard and practiced. But when you hear anything promoting that, then that also takes us from the grace of God. It is unchristian, and I know even in Islam, even the Islam religion does not condone this. It is against God's will, because when God created Adam and Eve, God created both Adam and Eve in order for them to marry and procreate. This idea denies that and goes against the will of God. And when Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, simply it is because of the sin that they were committing. And God destroyed that entire city, and the city was rebuilt after that. And so when we talk of ungodly practice, and especially in Kenya, where we are 85% Christian, I think it is high time for people to see how best we can turn our face to God and do those things that please God. The people who are promoting this are the same people who colonized us, in whose hands we suffered as African countries, where they have moved us from our culture, our traditional dresses, our mode of doing things, and our way of handling disputes and everything. And right now, they are trying to bring conflict between us and God. And that is unacceptable. Those who are bringing money to mislead our young people, we should be, as a nation, be careful and keen so that any source that is ungodly should be refused and rejected. Mr. Speaker, in our schools, in the prisons, and in other places, this practice may be happening. And it is high time for us to see how we can control. Parents, it is high time for us to have serious dialogue with our children on sexual matters so that we can guide them, so that we can lead them into godly behavior. When a nation, gets influenced in many ways that does not believe or does not please God, then we will be punished when the time comes. I support the motion, but for the issue of LGBTQ, I am against.
1 minute.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm saying I'm a strong believer, and for the practice of LGBTQ in our country. I am against, and I will always fight. The Bible says God loves the sinners, but he hates the sinful practices. So we will always try to lead our people into the right direction as the leaders of this nation, and it is my prayer that Kenya as a country will overcome this particular challenge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Joshua Mwalio, the Member of Parliament for Masinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to just say something on this critical analysis of the post-colonial agreement, significant governance structure changes, and the controversial treaty provisions. I have read this document, and although I have not been able to read the whole of it, but the few places I've been able to read are very controversial. So the changes that are now being introduced have got hidden agendas. And the hidden agendas do not favor African countries as such, because it says, in contrast, the pending treaty would mandate compliance with the variant new alleged human rights. This name of human rights are whereby the sexual and abortion controversies and the sexual education for the young children is now hidden. Our children will be forced, if we sign this treaty, to learn the bad habits of the European countries. Any African state, it says, that rallies this treaty would need to abide by unspecified international norms. These international norms are changing our culture. They are going to force us, although we need some aids, but it is going to force us to enter into unspecified agreements which are not in our likings, but it's as if it's being forced through our throats. Mr. Speaker, it says that the young children will be taught in schools sexual rights, their own sexual rights, so that they can be able to choose by themselves, oriented. There will be some orientations on their gender identity. How can a person be born and not be able to know whether I am a male or a female? You have to be told, because the orientation is there. You are going to be oriented, to be able to find yourself, to be able to discover which gender you are. Because from the beginning, even God created a man and a woman.
Honorable Mwalio, by the standing orders, your time is up and we have to call the mover to reply.
Speaker, can I just finish? So what I would like to say is that this is a controversial treaty, and for me, I see a lot of hidden agendas inside which I don't agree with, so I don't support.
Thank you, Honorable Mwalio. The motion is for noting, not supporting or opposing. I've seen Honorable Muriu Mungai, not Muriu Mungai, Mungai is your former partner, the late Nani Mungai, under whose tutelage and yourself, I learned law. I hope you are not interested in contributing because time is up. And I'm mandated now by the standing orders to call the mover to reply. But the mover may graciously donate you time within the time he has, if he wills.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to give him 2 minutes to speak on this as part of replying, and then I will close.
Do you intend to be gracious to that member, or that member is not intending to contribute?
You would like to contribute to this? So I'll give you 2 minutes. He starts, you come, and then I'll finish.
Yeah, because the mover is very gracious.
You're ready, you can start. 2 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start with supporting this motion. This treaty is a very important treaty that will allow this country to be part of other countries to express and look in their own interest. But the issue is, as much as we want to be part of others, try to advance our interest, but there are other limitations that we need to look at. The issues that are unspecified, that we are forced to sign every time without knowing it, must be made clear first for us to sign this agreement with other countries or members. Most importantly, I want to talk about the issue of LGBTQ. This issue is an issue that has brought a lot of outcry in this country. It is against the norms, culture, and all religions in this country. It's something that we need to say no to it in all forums, including this one we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, God created man and a woman for a purpose, and we can't revert or reverse the roles. With that few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the treaty with that exception, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Muriu.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to contribute in support of this motion, in particular on this, on the issue regarding to the 61st session of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and the Pacific, OACPS Parliamentary Assembly, for the second session. Mr. Speaker, sir, matters pertaining to international treaties need to be looked by this parliament with what you call the tooth comb, because some of these treaties, the things they propose are against our norm. There is this issue about LGBTQ, which, Mr. Speaker, sir, which we strong as Kenyan, being a Christian and Muslim country, and minorities in the Hinduism, another religion, there is no single religion which prescribes for LGBTQ. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we have a responsibility as leaders to support the generation which is coming. Remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, the white man, when he brought the religion to this country, he told us, look, too many wives are bad, get only one. He forgot that what it was supposed to bring is a religion to save our souls, not our bodies. Mr. Speaker, sir, now the Western has come again and tell us, look, the woman I told you, that single woman I told you to support and to be married to, now leave that woman. Man should marry another man, and a woman should marry another woman. Mr. Speaker, sir, we stand at a very critical time in the history of this country. And we need to have a serious conversation at all instances, in our churches, in parliament, in whatever barazas, and say no to LGBTQ. A man shall leave his wife, shall leave his parents, and join his wife and become one. That is the law. That's the canon law. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that cannot change. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this motion, save for the fact that if there's any element of LGBTQ, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to oppose. Thank you very much.
Very much. Mover.
Thank you very much. I would like to respond, Mr. Speaker, that this House was supposed to note the report of the 61st session. I know there have been many words that have been used to support, but this Parliament notes, and I want to thank all those members that contributed to note the report of the 61st session of the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific, OSP's Parliamentary Assembly, and the 42nd session of the CPU. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, the role of the Joint Parliamentary Assembly, as set out in the Cotonou Agreement, Article 17, is very clear. The role to promote democratic processes through dialogue and consultation, facilitate greater understanding between the people of the European Union and those of the ACP states, and raise public awareness of development issues, to discuss issues pertaining to development and the ACP-EU partnership, and to adopt resolutions and make recommendations to the Council of Ministers with a view to achieving the objectives of this agreement. Mr. Speaker, there are very many fundamental and important aspects of the ACP-EU and the JPA, the Joint Parliamentary Assembly. It focuses on very important things. One, access to energy, food security. It focuses on technology transfer. It also focuses on the Millennium Development Goal, for which a lot of African countries have struggled really to achieve, security in the sub-Saharan region, and free and independent media. These are the important facets that form the discussions around the JPA. I know a lot of our members have focused their discussions on the LGBTQ. Probably they were taking the cue from the Honorable Speaker, because the Honorable Speaker, this is his pet subject. And of course, he has moved the debate towards that. But, Honorable Speaker, there are other fundamental issues.
And Honorable Deputy Majority Leader, you know the Honorable Speaker's pursuits. You and your people from the Pemba community know.
Yes.
We never quite fail out of the chair.
Yes, and I want to thank you and congratulate you for the effort that you're making. And I look forward to supporting your motion on the LGBTQ subject. And this country is a Christian country, is a religious country. There's certain values that are purely African, which we must uphold, and foreign values that are being imposed on us by other sovereigns must always be rejected. I will stand with you to reject this new thinking and new ideas that are being brought up. But in view of the JPA and the ACPU, Honorable Speaker, there are important things that we need to cooperate and collaborate with other countries, especially on access to energy. Today, almost 60% of Kenya is underserved in terms of energy. It is something that we need to cooperate with other people to see how we can resource this country and other countries to ensure that Africa gets enough energy in order to light up their homes and industrialization and reduce the cost of production. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to note and thank everybody, and including you, Honorable Speaker, for supporting this motion that has been brought, and we look forward to the new agreement so that ACPU-EU can continue. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Much. For the convenience of the House and for good reasons, the question relating to this motion will be deferred to the next time it will sit, and it will be scheduled by the House Business Committee for consideration. Next motion. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, general debate on the proposal to to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. Resumption of debate.
Mr. Honorable Yusuf, on a point of order. What is out of order? Give Honorable Yusuf.
I am standing on point of order number 35 for lack of quorum for this specific, the specific motion. Thank you.
Is it your position that from your observation, the House appears not to have quorum? Do you ring the quorum bell, we confirm? The bell has only rung for 6 minutes. It should be rung for 4 more minutes in line with our standing orders. Order, honorable members. The House has fallen short of the requirements of Standing Order number 34. It will therefore be adjourned in accordance with Standing Orders number 35. And the time being 6:10 p.m., the House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 22nd March 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
It is plural because we are not homogeneous, and it goes extensively in the importance of the language. So that's the first amendment that I would ask the sponsor to consider, that it read